Welcome to the UAEactiveSPEARO. This is the last interview of the season number 1. William represents the Seaman tradition, and he definitely carries over the marine heritage, which is based in his roots. A 6-year-old gentleman who in his best times he was able to reach 40 meters of depth while freediving, but he's definitely a keen and vivid spear fisherman. During this interview we were talking about blackouts, we're sharing his stories and stories about diving and spearing. There's a lot of topics, so what I suggest, maybe use the index which is down below in the description, and as this is a long interview and this interview has 2 parts, enjoy the interview part 1 and maybe prepare yourself a coffee. Take care.
Welcome to Abu Dhabi. My time with the sea started from a very young age. I was a child. I was brought up in a place called Scarborough in England, and it's a seaside town and a fishing town. So my family are historically fishermen, trawlermen, line fishermen, crab fishermen, lobster fishermen. As I was a son of a fisherman, I went to a school called the Graham Sea Training School as high school, and it was basically for the son of the children, the boys of fishermen, merchant seamen, Royal Navy seamen, and we were taught things about the sea rather than other what they classed as not important things like religion and art and music. We were taught navigation, seamanship and signals. So we were all taught to learn Morse code, and we just basically, it was a sea training school, and it was a great grounding. And of course the sea is something that's been important to me all my life. From there I spent time as a trawlerman for a few years, and I ran away and joined the army. But still always missed the sea. The sea's been close to me all of my life. I moved offshore from the United Kingdom in 1994 and went to live in Indonesia, Singapore and Malaysia. And there I got involved in scuba diving. And I love diving. I've always enjoyed the sea. And I did my dive master in Thailand, finally, having started scuba diving in Indonesia. Then I moved here, carried on scuba diving here in Fujairah, and some beautiful diving, which sadly now is desolate, unfortunately, which is a big issue. And then I decided that it might be a good idea to try this freediving. And I met a guy called Tony, who was the instructor here in Abu Dhabi, and we did some training here, and then finally did my ADA 2 qualification with Yuri. From there I obviously got the bug, and I was doing it quite well. I got down, my deepest depth was 38 meters at that time, and I just felt natural. It was something that I just felt was in me. I got involved with freediving and carried on freediving regularly here and also in Vietnam, where I was working at the time. Unfortunately, I had a pretty serious blackout in Khor Fakkan. I was diving with Yuri again, but with a group, and I was training with a guy called Jason, Canadian diver, and we were both diving down to 30 meters. We were testing our skills and our techniques and learning from each other. I came up from the last 30-meter dive and blacked out, and luckily everybody was qualified, and Jason was the first to get hold of me when I came up. And the funny thing was, I went down, and as I was coming up at 10 meters I felt great. I even gave him, I'm fine. But when I popped out, for some reason I blacked out, and it was a weird experience. I had an out-of-body experience, and I could remember myself shouting, Jason, take the mask off, take the mask off, because he was tapping my face, but I still had my mask on. And then Yuri came along, thankfully, took the mask off, blew on my cheeks, and I came round, and I was fine. Then my kids found out about it, and my grandchildren were upset, so I had to agree that I wouldn't go deep anymore, and I restricted my freediving to 25 meters, which was quite easy for me back then. And then went to Vietnam and stuck to my word and did a 25-meter. I got stuck in a down current after doing a no fins freedive to 25 meters. After 5 strokes, I looked down and I was still on the plate. So I remembered the training, went lateral and then back up, and by the time I popped up I was out of there and I literally blacked out again. That basically was the end of my free diving, really, and I needed something, and I found that spear diving was the perfect thing for me, spearfishing. And a good friend of mine, Ez, who's based in Dubai, as you know, Ez, he helped to teach me how to do it, along with Fuad was the guy I dived in Abu Dhabi the first time, and I started to learn. We've got some gang here, look. I started to learn to do it the way it should be done, and basically, thank you, and basically went from there and carried on free diving, spear diving, sorry, and that was it. The bug hit me, and every chance I get and got then, I carried on free diving. I'm very lucky that I live close to this place, so I can jump in here anytime I want to. And it's a passion. Everybody knows, if you're a spear diver, you know, you don't care about the visibility or about the current, as we've experienced this morning. We don't care. We still enjoy it. If we get fish or not, it doesn't matter to me. You know, it's just being in the water that I enjoy. And it carried on from there, and I was a member of Abu Dhabi Spear Diving, which is primarily an Arabic language group, a great group as well, run by some good friends of mine. And I thought it might be a good idea to have an English one. So I set up Abu Dhabi SPEAROs, not in competition, but to provide, I thought, English language group. And we've got 100 members of the group. It's carried on there. We're a very laid-back group. It's primarily involved in teaching and learning, safety, sorry. Safety for me is the most important part of spear diving. And I always try to encourage safety methods and safety standards on the group. And that's what it's all about. That's why I keep on doing what I'm doing, and I'm happy to do it. So that's basically the story of me and why I started spear diving.
So this is basically a second time we meet, and I'm so happy, I'm so proud that you have some time as well for me, and I'm happy. I'm on my holidays here in Abu Dhabi, which is great. I had a chance actually to join your group because of Ez, by the way. So maybe greetings to Ez. He is the one who actually sold me some second-hand equipment, and I was very happy about this. And then because of that, he said, you know what, let me add you to some amazing group. And that's Abu Dhabi SPEAROs, your group. So then I started to actually see that there is that one guy who is, I think, a bit older than me, and he's a good leader, and I like it actually. And then I realized, wait, this is this guy, he's way older than me. So it's not about this thing, it's more about this, the leadership, and then knowing what you want exactly. That's so great. But even today, when we actually dove today, it feels so like serene, so nice, and here. And then I like your personality, you know. I mean, you're just calm guy. I don't like people that lay their devils and so on. Just easygoing stuff, which is great. And I think that's something that you promote in the group. And I think we're definitely, myself, in sync with this. And probably maybe even I learned this from you. So thank you so much. So tell us something a bit more about, maybe you said already about the group, which is great. You're lucky guys. If you know the group and you're the members of the group, then that's a good spot. If you can maybe tell us some more about the future of the group. I mean, there's definitely some development, you know, many people. Or if you can just tell us how to admin such kind of an interesting group. What are the stories behind, you know, how people they come to know about the group, how to find you, because I believe you don't really advertise yourself. Yeah? It's just word of mouth. So if you can share more about this, that'll be great.
As far as the group's concerned, we've got a diverse range of nationalities, personalities, skills. I think at one stage we had 8 instructors on the group, which really made me happy. It's a very laid-back group. We don't get too involved in getting upset with each other. We try to, I try to foster people being happy. You know, and when people join the group, I just say, please enjoy. You know, learn what you can and enjoy. We've got some really great people on the group who are always happy to help, and that's what I found about the laid-back way, is that if you want some help, just ask. And it's a good thing about diving, free diving, scuba, spear diving, whatever you want to call it. Everybody's prepared to help everybody, and it's nice to be able to enjoy each other's personalities. It's not easy. Sometimes people get upset, and you've got to try and calm them down a little bit. But they tend to understand, and I think as far as a group is concerned, having good people on the group helps. If I invite somebody, or if I see somebody who wants to be invited and I don't like their personality, or I think they're too aggressive or argumentative, I won't invite them. Simple. We've got 100 members on the group now. I'm quite happy with that. I really don't want any more, to be honest. We could have 200 easily, but you know, I think the people who are on the group now make the group what it is today. We've got got quite a number of Lebanese guys on the group who are great divers, by the way. We've got some South African guys who are, again, great divers. We've got British guys. I think there's only 2 of us, me and my good friend Liam. I think that's about it. But you know, there's a feeling within the group that everybody wants to help everybody. And whenever you need a dive, Firaz, who you know is a good friend and has a boat that takes us out on his boat, and he has a group of guys that really enjoy the boat diving, and there's no animosity. You know, there's no arguing, there's no complaining. Every now and then we have a bit of an issue. Some guys prefer not to shoot certain fish. Some guys think it's okay to shoot certain fish. But, you know, it's about the environment as well. And I think preserving the fish stocks is the important thing here. You know, today we got, what, just a couple of little pomfrets. I'm happy with that. You know, if I walk away with 2 or 3 pomfrets, that's fine. You know, I don't mind. I've seen some huge fish here. I've seen bigger fish. I've shot bigger fish elsewhere, but it doesn't really bother me. It's just the camaraderie of people who dive tend to be different. You know, I see spear divers and free divers in a military sense more like the special forces. Anybody can put a mask on and scuba. My grandmother can do it. Anybody can put a scuba, and I'm serious, anybody can put a mask on and scuba tomorrow. You can't do it unless there's something different about you as a breath hold diver. It takes a special type of person and a special personality to be able to do that. And I think learning this skill and becoming proficient at this skill is not something anybody can do. You have to be a certain type of person to do it.
Yeah, that's what I believe, and that's what I see on a daily basis. Abu Dhabi Spearo group is always about some actually good fun and good stories, sharing some pictures. I think also thanks to your group I met Tamer, my buddy, I believe, and we started more or less in the same time, so we became buddy, and it's so good. So hey Tamer, I know that you're watching. So going back to basics, if you can tell us something more about your like spearfishing background.
In Abu Dhabi we're quite fortunate really, because there is a spear diving license. It's called the fishing license, and you buy it if you want to be angling. You need a license to be an angler here. But it also covers spear diving. A lot of people say it doesn't, and there's conversations about it, but actually if you look into it, it does cover you as a spear diver here in Abu Dhabi. I'm not sure about the rest of the Emirates, but certainly here in Abu Dhabi, those of us who want it have got a spear diving license. I did my ADA 2 straight away when I learnt about this. I started breath hold training in my pool at home. I'm lucky that I've got a swimming pool in the apartment. Started breath hold training there, and sometimes some of my friends come around and we do training together. Teach some people how to swim. I teach some people how to breath hold. I teach people how to snorkel and a little bit of diving skills as well. I'm not an instructor, but I'm just proficient, and I know how to teach people. I did some swimming instruction back home many years ago, but I just feel comfortable teaching people. As far as licensing and the diving licensing is concerned, I'm one of those people who really believe that getting a basic license or passing a test to do breath hold diving is important. Because, you know, we had some dives today where we went down to, what, 10, 12 meters here in the trench. We were always together. We watch each other as buddies. We know what's going on. We ask each other, everything okay? I watch you going down, you watch me going down. It makes sense, because you never know when there's going to be a problem. You never know when you're going to need a knife, for example. How many people dive without a knife? It shocks me. I dive with 2 knives. I have one on my belt and one on my float. I think it's so important to have a knife. And I think, again, going back to that safety element, it's so important that you're diving with a buddy. You need to have a buddy diving with you all the time, because nobody knows what's going to happen. This morning I dived and I went down to a depth of about 8 meters, and I looked and looked for the fish, and when I came up, my head got stuck on an overhang. Okay, luckily I know that dive spot, so I understood, and I just backed myself out and came up. But if it was my first dive and I didn't know that, it could have been very, very dangerous. So I think people should, in my opinion, be qualified to be a freediver. Not necessarily a full freediver course, because it's a different sport, obviously. And a lot of people say you don't need one because you're doing the other, but there are similarities. We need to understand breath holding. We need to understand things like CO2. We need to understand, you know, I was surprised that in freediving, nobody taught me anything about a knife. It was never mentioned, which I thought was, which I thought was a bit strange, really, because of course a knife is important in this sport. So yeah, I think for anybody who's going to do this seriously, just look for some qualification, either freediving or primarily, if you can nowadays, because they're out there, there's a lot of guys offering speardiving courses. If I knew about that, if that was available when I started 4 years ago, I would have definitely done it. Because the little things that you learn, even diving with a buddy who's got a bit more experience, you learn things. I mean, I had a dive here with a guy who was just started diving, and he had a float, and I said, make sure you bring a float, because I think floats are very important. And he brought a float. It was attached to his gun, 1 meter off his gun. So we dived, and I'm looking, so what's he doing? I had a little cork float attached to his gun, and I said, what are you doing? He said, yeah, I need a float, right? So just basic knowledge of the fact that the float should be on the surface. And of course he's learnt that now, and in fact, I won't tell you who he is, but he is now an amazing diver. And I'm shocked at how quickly he's developed into becoming a great spear diver. He does tend to dive alone sometimes, which I don't agree with, but you know, everybody does their own thing, I guess. But for me, safety, safety, safety. I've done it. I've had 2 blackouts. I know. I have to say, the first blackout was the most wonderful high in my life, actually. I actually quite enjoyed it. Shouldn't be saying that, I guess, but you know, I think most people who free dive or spear dive have had a blackout. If you haven't, it's not such a big issue, as long as you've got somebody with you who knows what he's doing. I've helped 2 people who've had blackouts and been with them and brought them through it, and I've had 2 myself and been with people who have helped me come through it. And it was an amazing experience. Not as bad as you might think it is. I don't encourage anybody to look for it, but it's not such a bad thing when it does happen to you.
I really advise you to come to Abu Dhabi and maybe go with Will. Why not, if he will accept you to go with you? But I really like to listen to your stories, and then because you know you admin the group, you have definitely a good idea what's going on. Also in our heads, what do we think about? And then there are always some issues, and I believe that's always about ethics. And then if you know how to behave, if you have a common sense, then definitely you might be also a good person, a good spearo. There's always the topic about which fish to shoot, which not to fish. I know that you were some time ago against shooting, like, you know, hamurs, but that's always the thing. So if you can share with us maybe some more insight from the group, how do you find people, how do they behave, what do you like, what do you dislike, and how to be actually a good, nice, ethical spearo.
I think most of us spearos have a common rule, a rule of thumb, and it's don't shoot it if you're not going to eat it. Okay? Every single fish I ever shoot, I'll eat. If I don't like it, I don't shoot it. I can't understand why sometimes you see people going on boat trips with scores and scores of fish. I don't understand why anybody would want to shoot 50 hamur in a day. Hamur is classed as an endangered species here. Thanks to the government, they've been introducing fish farming for the hamur, and we're definitely seeing a recovery. I've seen today 2 hamur, both small hamur, both juvenile hamur. I don't know if you know much about the hamur, but the hamur gets to a certain size and it changes sex, or it can change sex. It can change sex. And I think, personally, I wouldn't shoot any hamur. It's very rare that I would shoot a hamur. If I shoot a hamur, it's got to be a mature size. Mature size is sort of 70 centimeters and more, because I think although the government done a lot and they're releasing 50,000 hamur a year in Abu Dhabi waters, it's wonderful. But what's the point of them doing it if we're going around and shooting them? You know, my feeling is they ought to tag the hamur that they're releasing. They ought to have a tag on them. And if they tag those hamur, we should leave them alone. If you see a hamur with a tag, don't shoot it. It would be simple, right? I don't understand why it's a big issue. Just don't shoot the small hamur. Some people like to shoot them small. Some people say you're better off shooting small rather than big. You know, I've shot some huge hamurs before. I don't do it anymore, but I've done it in the past before I knew better. And I think we have to try and safeguard the species by selective fishing, if you like. I can't understand why anybody would shoot a fish this big. Why would you shoot? Right here, I saw a guy catch a hamur this big. Right here, not a spearo, an angler. And I got out of the water, it was still alive. I took it off and threw it back in. He went insane with me. He went crazy. He said, "What are you doing? Why are you doing? Why?" I said, "Because it's baby." And I gave him a couple of sea bream, and he was happy. I think for those people who go on boat trips and pull in 60, 70, 80 fish, I don't agree with that at all. I really don't agree with it. If you're not going to eat it or you're not going to feed your family with it, I can't understand for the life of me why you would want to do that. I've seen some huge fish here. I've seen massive kingfish here. But because I only had my small gun, not my big gun, I didn't shoot it. I could have shot it. All I would have done was injure it. And what's the point of injuring something? If I'm going to shoot it, I'm going to eat it. If we all stick to those rules, everybody's happy. And you know, people say, oh, it's the commercial fishermen who cause all the problems. We make a very, very small dent in fish stocks as spear fishermen. But everybody's watching us. Everybody's watching us. Nobody's watching the commercial fishermen. Everybody's watching what we do, and we should be setting the right example. You know, if we go around shooting small fish, tiny little sea breams and hamur and fiskers and all the rest of it, it's not good. It's not good for the fish stocks. There are plenty of sweet lips here. You can shoot as many sweet lips as you want. You're not going to affect it because there are so many of them here. It's prevalent. Sweet lips, not a lot of people really know about sweet lips. When you shoot sort of sweet lips this size, it makes a good meal. And it's really tasty as well, actually. You don't need to be shooting fish that are endangered. There are plenty of other fish here that we can all benefit from. So I would say to anybody, shoot what you eat. If you don't want, I don't shoot squid. I don't like to eat squid, so I don't shoot them. If you're not going to eat it, I don't think you should. You should. In closing, what do I recommend for spear divers? I think one of the most important things that we need to understand is recovery. Recovery breathing. You must have sufficient recovery after a dive, and I say 3 times plus. If you dive for a minute, you must have at least 3-4 minutes recovery time. And I think it's important to have a dive watch to ensure that you've got surface time. Is important to know because you can't guess. How many times did you do it before without a dive watch and think, oh, I'll just wait for a couple of minutes? If you do that, then look at your watch, you'll see that it's always wrong. Okay, so recovery breathing is very, very important, and recovery interval is very important. What do I think you should do as far as speed diving is concerned? Just enjoy it. Don't go too far. You don't need to go deep to enjoy it. You can have just as much fun at 3 to 5 meters.
Will, so that's the last question. Whom would you like to greet? Whom would you like to give any shout outs to? And who would you suggest to meet with me? I would love to meet with many of your friends. I believe you have plenty of them. Some of them, they are very special. Some of them, they are specialized in something. So this is a very hard question.
Going to, who would I recommend? Some of my good friends who I've dived with, who I really enjoy diving with. I mentioned already Liam, who's a great diver, a very, very strong guy to have with you. Ellie, who's a guy that lives out at Nurai. Firaz, of course, who, as you know, has got a shop here that we can't mention, but Firaz. And another reason for being on the group is ask for discounts, because you get discounts. Some of them will give you up to 35% discount on equipment. Some of them will give you 15% discount. Amit, who do the Rife Gear here in Abu Dhabi, we give our group members 35% discount on gear. Gulf Marine Firaz will give you up to 20%, but you've got to tell him you're in the group, okay? Who would I recommend for you to do an interview with? Definitely Ez. Ez has been diving for most of his life from Lebanon on here, and he's based in Dubai. Firaz was not just an owner of shops and a boat, but he's also very experienced. He's a dive instructor, both for paddy and for spear diving and free diving. Ellie, who's a good friend of mine, who's a Lebanese and who's lives in Nurai Island and is a great diver. If you can get invited to there, what a great way to get an excuse to go to a very expensive island, Nurai. So, Ellie, Firaz. Oh, Badr. Badr is one of my great friends who is a boat owner. Not at the moment because his boat's being sorted out at the moment. But Badr is an Emirati, and I think is in the Marines here. Serves in the Marines. I think he's a sergeant in the Marines. But a fantastic diver, a great person to dive with. Well, not forgetting, of course, Wayne. Wayne is a good friend of mine, and he's my mentor for diving. Wayne is a South African diver, great guy. You should definitely sit in front of Wayne as an interview. Too many people to mention. All the guys in Abu Dhabi Spearos are good guys. All of them would be welcoming to anybody. If you want to dive somewhere, go on the group. There's always somebody who's dived it before, right? Just go on the group and ask. Anybody know? They might not want to tell you all their dive locations, but they're pretty sure they'll be happy to dive with you as a buddy, which of course is very important. There are people who've had an influence on my freediving and spear diving career. First of all, Yuri. Yuri was the first guy I did freediving, my freediving test with, the Ada 2, and saved my life, so he's pretty important, I guess. Basil, who's a good friend and a very good instructor, who I know quite well, who's based in Dubai as well. Ahab, who's a good friend of mine here, Egyptian guy. We do lots of diving together. Of course, Firaz and Liam, we mentioned already. Yeah, there's a lot of guys here who have been an influence on me and have encouraged me to keep up doing what I do. Too many people to mention, obviously, but and everybody who's been involved. Oh, Ali. Ali is Ali Ottman, who's based here, who's in the other group, who's a good friend. Fuad, again, a very good friend, is shot my first fish with Fuad. And Ali Abdullah, who's now back in Lebanon, but is a great friend of mine, and we did a lot of diving together before he sadly left for Lebanon. That's it, I think. They're the guys who have influenced me to carry on doing what I do. So thank you, all of you, as being good friends and as encouraging. Of course, Andrew, who's here. Andrew is here with me, and we've known each other for a while whilst he's been on the group, but only recently got to dive together. Is this the first one? It's our first dive?
This is the first dive.
Wow, first dive, and tomorrow as well, of course. Just wanted to mention the group as well, Abu Dhabi Spearos. Been great to spend time with you guys, diving with you, and of course members of the group make it important and keep me motivated to keep it going. Faisal, of course, who's been a close friend of mine for some time, and you know, there's a lot of guys, I can't mention everybody of course, but you know, without you guys the group doesn't exist. So thank you all for all of your input, and thank you for making it worthwhile. And I've really enjoyed the last I think 3 years now the group's been going. 100 members strong, all different nationalities, everybody's different, we're all at different levels of skills and experience, and it's important, and I really do appreciate everybody being of course Tamer, oh, my two good friends Tamer, both the Sudani guy Tamer and my good friend Tamer Kablawi, in Dubai as well. So he's definitely a guy you would want to talk to because he's a sailor as well. So good. We've been doing it now for over 2 hours, 2:52, and 2 hours almost now.
All right.
Yeah. Alas.